Alaska cruises don't make sense. It's the same cruise lines, the same ships, and the same length of itineraries, but somehow they're double the price, and the reason why has nothing to do with any of that. So I started digging into this, and it turns out there's not just one reason Alaska cruises are so expensive. There's actually multiple layers of why it costs so much, and most of them have nothing to do with the ship you're sailing on. Some of them make sense, but a few of them might completely change how you look at the price of an Alaska cruise. By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly where that money is going and whether it's actually worth the price you'll pay to experience Alaska. Oh, and if we haven't met yet, I'm Evan from Family at Sea. If this is your first time watching my channel, I'm glad you're here, and well, if you've been here for a while, you already know how much I appreciate you. If you're ready, I am. Let's go. Alaska cruises only run for a few months of the year, typically from May through September, which limits not only the amount of time the cruise lines have to make money there, but there's only but so many ships sailing. And once those are booked, there's no extra capacity to add. And on top of that, there's a limited number of ports that can actually handle cruise ships with far less options than what you have in places like Caribbean, which creates a bottleneck for the supply side of things in Alaska. So now you've got cruise lines competing for those spots and ports that can charge a premium because they know demand is high and space is limited. And from your side as the traveler, you're competing for a limited number of cabins on those same sailings. When supply is fixed and demand keeps growing, prices don't need to come down. And let's face it, Alaska is a bucket list trip for a lot of people. So even as prices rise, people keep booking. And that's just one of the things that makes Alaska different. It's not just another cruise you can take anytime. It's a limited window with limited access and a lot of people trying to fit into both. And that's only the starting point. So before you even look at anything else, Alaska is already set up to be more expensive. And that's really what this comes down to, because with Alaska especially, it's not just about finding the cheapest cruise. It's about understanding what you're actually getting for the money. A lower fare might look good at first, but if you end up with the wrong itinerary, the wrong cabin, or a ship that doesn't fit the kind of experience you want, it can completely change the trip. And that's exactly why we Book Through Cruises it. Instead of guessing, you're working with people who actually understand the ships, the pricing patterns, and how different cabins can completely change your experience. They've saved us thousands over the years, helped us land better cabins, and kept us from making choices we would have regretted later. Which more than I can say for Frank, who once told me, "Evan, I don't need a travel agent, I'll just figure it out myself." Frank, you spent 6 months planning your bucket list cruise to Alaska, and you still ended up with an obstructed view staring at a lifeboat the whole week. With their low price guarantee and people who actually care, Cruises It makes booking simpler, cheaper, and a whole lot less stressful. So click the link in the description below or call the number on the screen and tell them Evan from Family at Sea sent you. You'll be glad you did. Getting ships to Alaska isn't simple, and it's definitely not cheap. These ships aren't based in Alaska year-round, and the majority aren't even on the west coast, so they're coming from places like the Caribbean, which means every spring they have to reposition from thousands of miles away just to start the season. And for ships coming from the East Coast, that means passing through the Panama Canal, which comes with significant transit fees, and those aren't small costs, and they apply every single time a ship makes that move. And even for ships coming from the West Coast, you're still talking about long repositioning routes, crew logistics, and additional fuel just to get in a place before the first passenger even steps on board. And here's the reality. Fuel is a big part of this, especially with the uncertainty we're seeing geopolitically around the world, leading to increased fuel costs. And then there's the simple fact that Alaska itineraries are longer distances overall, which means they're consuming more fuel than they do in the Caribbean, where things are closer together. So now you've got ships traveling farther, repositioning seasonally, and operating in ways that prioritize the experience over efficiency. And all of that adds up because none of these costs disappear, they just get built into the price of the cruise. So before the ship even starts its first Alaska sailing, there's already a significant amount of money that's been spent just getting it there and running it the way Alaska itineraries require. And for cruises that include Glacier Bay, there's another major factor driving up the price. Access isn't open to everyone. Glacier Bay is managed by the National Park Service, and they strictly limit how many ships are allowed in each day and even which cruise lines are allowed to operate there at all. Cruise lines don't just show up, they have to be approved through long-term agreements that give them the right to operate inside the park, and not every line gets that access. So right away, you've got something that's limited, controlled, and not widely available. And on top of that, cruise lines pay per passenger to enter Glacier Bay. And when you multiply that across a ship with thousands of guests, that becomes a significant cost for a single day. And then there's the operational requirements. Every ship has to bring park rangers on board while they're inside Glacier Bay, and those rangers monitor environmental impact, enforce regulations, and provide education throughout the day. There's also strict rules around speed, routing, and how ships navigate the park, which adds complexity compared to a typical itinerary. So from the cruise line's perspective, this isn't just another scenic stop. It's a highly controlled experience with added costs and limited access. And from your perspective, that matters, because when something is both restricted and in high demand, it becomes more valuable, and that drives the price up on any itinerary that includes it. And here's the unfortunate reality. Even once you've paid for the cruise, you're not done spending. Getting to Alaska usually means flying to places like Seattle, Vancouver, or even Anchorage, depending on your itinerary. And those flights aren't cheap, especially during peak summer when demand is highest. Most people also add at least one hotel night before the cruise, sometimes after as well, just to avoid travel delays or to explore the city a bit, which is another cost layered on top in some of the most expensive cities in the world. And then there's the excursions. Alaska isn't a place where you just walk off the ship and wander around for free. The experiences people actually want, like whale watching, helicopter rides to glaciers, dog sledding, and wildlife tours, can easily run a few $100s per person, and sometimes quite a bit more than that. And there's a reason for that. A lot of these ports like Juneau and Ketchikan are islands that are only accessible by air or sea, so there's no major road systems connecting them to the rest of the world. So everything needed to run those tours, whether it's fuel, equipment, food, staff, and everything else, all has to be flown in or brought in by ship, which drives up the cost of everything on the ground. Even basic things like transportation, meals, and supplies are more expensive in these remote locations, and that all gets passed on to you. So while the cruise fare itself might look expensive, it's really just the starting point. And by the time you add flights, hotels, and the experiences that actually make Alaska special, the total cost of the trip can easily double itself from what you paid for the cruise itself. And that's a big part of why Alaska cruises are so expensive when it's all said and done. So when you step back and look at all this, it's easy to see Alaska cruises aren't expensive by accident. You've got a short season, limited access to ports, added costs just to get the ships there, extra fees layered in along the way, and in some cases restricted access to places like Glacier Bay. And on top of that, the actual trip itself comes with a lot of additional costs once you get there as well. So it's not just one thing driving the price up, it's all of it working together. And that's really the takeaway. Because once you understand why Alaska costs more, it stops feeling random and you can start making better decisions about where your money is actually going. But here's the bad news. If you've decided Alaska is your dream cruise, and well, it probably should be, doing it right without overspending is harder than most people expect. Because between excursions, flights, hotels, and all the little things that add up along the way, it's very easy for that budget to get away from you if you don't have a plan going in. But the good news, I've already broken down exactly how to do an Alaska cruise on a budget without cutting out the experiences that actually make the trip worth it. So don't stop here, watch that one next, and I'll show you exactly where to save and where to spend so you don't waste your money on the wrong things. I'll see you over there. If you're ready, I am. Let's go.